Okay, so we are going to be factoring quadratic expressions. So the first thing we need to do is see if there is a GCF, meaning is there a number that I can divide out of each of these. The only thing I can divide out of each of these ones is going to be 1. So that means I'm going to have to use the grouping method to factor. And that is because if I look at my A, which is right here, this is larger than 1 for the coefficients. It is 7. So that means I can't just make a chart. So what I'm going to do first is list my information. So A, B, and C. A is going to be 7, B is going to be 51, and C is going to be 14. The next piece of information I'm going to write is AC, or A times C, which is 98. Okay, now I can make my factor chart. So I have AC being here as my factor, and B, my middle term, is going to be the sum. So my factor, we want to multiply up to 98, and we want it to add up to my sum of 51. So now we're going to find factors of 98 that add up to 51. So let's use my calculator. So what you're going to do to find your factors is go to y equals, and type in that factor of 98 and divide it by x. Then do second graph. We want a pair of numbers that add up to 51. 2 and 49 add up to 51, so these are going to be my factors. So let's go back to our paper. So we're going to write down 49 and 2. And on the right, we're going to write 49 plus 2 because those two add up to 51. Now let's highlight that and the middle term because we're going to replace the middle term with those two factors. So we have this rewritten and the middle term highlighted. I'm going to take the 49 plus 2 and write 49x plus 2x to replace the 51x. Okay, so I'm rewriting that. Now what I need to do is take each pair of terms, the first two and last two, and put parentheses around them. Okay? Now I need to pull out my GCF of each pair. Looking at this one first, 7x squared plus 49x. That has a GCF of 7. I could divide both of those by 7, and I could also take an x out, so 7x. Dividing 7x squared by 7x, I just have x. And dividing 49x by 7x, I just have 7. Okay, now I'm going to factor out the GCF from the second pair. I can divide both of these by 2, so my GCF is 2. So divide 2x by 2, I have x. Divide 14 by 2, I get 7. Now notice how they both have x plus 7s. They should both be the same. If this and this are different, that means you factored out wrong or did something else wrong in your solving. So now, since those two are the same, that is the GCF in each term. So I'm going to factor out x plus 7. Now, when I factor out x plus 7 from this, I'm just left with 7x. When I factor out x plus 7 from this, I'm just left with 2. So I'll write x, or 7x plus 2. Then that's going to be my answer. So let's try a second one. So again, you'll see if there's a GCF, which in this one there isn't. And A is larger than 1, which means you got to use the grouping method. So let's write down our information. So A, B, and C is 15, negative 34, and 15. AC, or A times C, is going to be 225. So now let's make our chart. So AC is going to be 225, and B is going to be negative 34. So now you want numbers that multiply to 225 but add up to negative 34. Now only two types of numbers multiply up to be positive. That's 2 negative and 2 positive. Since we have a negative middle term, that means both of our factors need to be negative. So that means negative 9 and negative 25 are going to be my factors. So then we write negative 9 plus negative 25 because those add up to negative 34, which is my middle term. So now I'm going to rewrite my middle term with negative 9x minus 25x. Okay? because that gives me negative 34. Now I'm going to write my parentheses around each pair. Put it around these two and put it around these two. Now I'm going to look for my GCF of each pair. This here would have a GCF of 3x, so 3x divided by 15x squared minus 9x will give me 5x minus 3. Notice here I have a negative in the front. That means I have to take out a negative when I factor out. My GCF here is 5, but make it negative 5. Take out the negative with it, because our goal was to make these two match. If I didn't take the negative out, these two would not match. Okay, so those are GCFs of each term here, to 5x minus 3. So take that out, and I'm left with 3x minus 5, which is going to be my answer. Okay, the area of a rectangular knitted blanket is 33x squared minus 5x minus 2. What are the possible dimensions of the blanket? So we got to use factoring. So writing down, we have to write down our information. So A, B, and C. A is 33, B is negative 5, and C is negative 2. AC, or A times C, is going to be negative 66. So now we can make our factors and add table. AC goes here, which is negative 66, and B goes here, which is negative 5. So now we're looking for two numbers that multiply to negative 66, but add up to negative 5. So we want a positive and a negative number. So that would give us 6 and negative 11. 6 plus negative 11 will give you negative 5. So let's highlight those. So we're going to replace the negative 5x or b in the middle with the 6 plus negative 11. So put x's on them. So now we have 33x squared plus 6x minus 11x minus 2. Now we're going to put parentheses around the first two terms and the second two terms. And now we look for the GCF. The GCF of these two terms is going to be 3x. 3 divided by 33 is going to be 11. 6 divided by 3 is going to be 2. So we have 3x times 11x plus 2. Now for the second term, or second binomial here, we take out a GCF of negative 1. Notice the negatives in the front, we can't have that, because we're trying to make these two look the same, so we just factor out a negative 1. Now we have GCFs here of 11x plus 2, so take that out. When we take them out of each one, say take it out of the first one, we're left with 3x. Take it out of the second one, we have minus 1. So we have 3x minus 1. Now, since it's dimensions that we're looking for, our answer would have to be written with a comma. So your answer should look like that. 11x plus 2 and 3x minus 1. And that's the answer for that one. Next one. Remember, first step is always to see if you can pull out a GCF first, meaning the number we could divide out of each one. Here we can divide out of 5, so my GCF is going to be 5. So dividing a 5 out of each, I'm going to have 3x squared minus 11x minus 4. Okay, so now when I do that, I will now factor just this piece and ignore the GCF for now. So I'm going to write down my A, B, and C and use these three numbers for my A, B, and C. So A is 3, B is negative 11, and C is negative 4. And AC is going to be negative 12. So I'll make my factors and add table. AC is negative 12 and B is negative 11. So I want two numbers that multiply to negative 12 but add up to negative 11. So that's going to be 1 and negative 12. 1 times negative 12 is negative 12. 1 plus negative 12 is negative 11. So highlight that. So now I'm going to replace this negative 11 with the 1 and negative 12. So I'll have 3x squared plus 1x minus 12x minus 4. Okay, so now I'm going to put parentheses around the first two terms and the second two terms. The first two terms have a GCF of just x, so I can take an x out. I'll have x times 3x plus 1. For my second terms, I have a GCF of 4, but notice how we have a negative in front, so you got to pull out a negative 4. Okay, so now these two match, so we're good. So highlight them, and now that's going to be my GCF. So pull out a 3x plus 1 from the x times 3x plus 1. I'm just left with x. Take it out from the second one, I'm left with negative 4. So my answer is going to be 3x plus 1 times x minus 4 with that GCF of 5 in the front. So don't forget that GCF. Make sure you put it back at the end. Okay, so now this is going to be my answer.